Welcome back, and thank you for tuning into Cheating Tales Lab. We appreciate every single one of you. We'd love to know what part of the world are you watching from right now. Let us know in the comments. Now, let's dive into today's story. The corner office on the 37th floor of Meridian Technologies headquarters offered a panoramic view of the city skyline, but Clinton McMullen barely noticed it anymore. His attention was fixed on the quarterly operations report displayed on his dual monitors, fingers dancing across the keyboard as he refined the presentation for tomorrow's board meeting. A gentle knock interrupted his concentration. Mr. McMullen? Sarah Chin, his executive assistant for the past 5 years, stood in the doorway. Her usually composed expression carried a hint of discomfort. "Do you have a moment?" Clinton gestured for her to enter, noting the slight hesitation in her step. Sarah had proven herself invaluable over the years, efficient, discreet, and most importantly, honest. The uncertainty in her bearing was unusual. "What's on your mind, Sarah?" She closed the door behind her, another warning sign. "Sir, I'm not sure if I should mention this, but given how long we've worked together." She took a deep breath. "I saw Mrs. McMullen yesterday at the Grand Somerset Hotel." Clinton's fingers stilled over the keyboard. "The Somerset? Tanya's in Oregon visiting her mother." "I know, sir. That's why I felt I should." Sarah shifted uncomfortably. She was with a man. They seemed intimate. The room temperature seemed to drop several degrees. Clinton maintained his composed exterior, even as his mind began cataloging details. Tanya had left for Oregon 3 days ago, claiming her mother had taken a bad fall. The same mother who had called their home phone yesterday, asking to speak with Tanya about an upcoming family reunion. "Did you recognize the man?" "Yes, sir. It was Gregory Walsh, from Helix Pharmaceuticals. He's attended several of our charity galas." Clinton remembered Walsh, tall, silver-haired, with the kind of artificial charm that came from too many corporate networking events. He'd noticed the man's lingering looks at Tanya during the last Christmas gala, but had dismissed it as typical social pleasantries. "Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate your discretion in bringing this to me directly." After Sarah left, Clinton opened his browser and typed Gregory Walsh Helix Pharmaceuticals into the search bar. The results painted a picture. CEO of Helix's East Coast operations, divorced twice, known for aggressive corporate takeovers and equally aggressive pursuit of younger women. At 57, he was 12 years Clinton's senior. Clinton's next call was to Marcus Blackwood at Sentinel Private Investigations. "Marcus? Clinton McMullen. I need your services, and I need absolute discretion. Always, Mr. McMullen. What are we looking at?" "I need surveillance on my wife, Tanya McMullen. Full coverage phone records, email, credit card statements, physical surveillance. I want to know everywhere she goes and everyone she meets." "Understood. Timeline. Start with the past 6 months, but be prepared to go back further." "And Marcus?" "I want particular attention paid to her interactions with Gregory Walsh from Helix Pharmaceuticals. We'll get started immediately. First report within 48 hours. Clinton ended the call and leaned back in his chair, his mind already constructing contingency plans. 20 years of marriage, built on what he'd thought was an unshakable foundation. He thought of the sacrifices, the 60-hour weeks, the missed vacations he'd taken to secure their position. The 5-bedroom house in Westbrook Hills hadn't come cheap, nor had Emma's private school tuition. Emma. His 15-year-old daughter's face flashed in his mind. She'd been distant lately, spending more time at friends' houses, offering one-word answers to his questions about school and activities. He'd attributed it to typical teenage behavior, but now? That evening, Clinton maintained their normal routine. He arrived home at 7, kissed Tanya hello, and asked about her mother's condition over dinner. "Mom's doing better," Tanya said, pushing her salmon around the plate. "The doctor says she just needs to be more careful about using her walker." Clinton watched his wife of 20 years lie to his face with practiced ease. Tanya had always been beautiful honey blonde hair, green eyes, the kind of figure that turned heads at charity galas. But now he noticed other details. The expensive new tennis bracelet she hadn't mentioned buying, the subtle checking of her phone under the table. "That's good to hear," he replied, taking another bite of salmon. "We should plan to visit her soon. As a family." A flicker of something anxiety crossed Tanya's face. Oh, you know how busy work keeps you, dear. Besides, Emma has her school commitments. Emma, who had been silent throughout dinner, suddenly stood. I need to finish my history project. May I be excused? After dinner, Clinton waited until Tanya was absorbed in her book club group chat before climbing the stairs to Emma's room. The door was closed, pop music leaking through the expensive soundproofing he'd had installed last year. He knocked twice. Come in. Emma sat cross-legged on her bed, textbooks spread around her. Her long dark hair, so different from either his brown or Tanya's blonde, was pulled back in a messy bun. She barely looked up from her phone. How's the project coming along? Fine. Clinton surveyed the room, noting the new designer handbag on her desk chair. That's a nice bag. Birthday gift? Oh, Mom got it for me. For getting good grades. The bag was a Chanel, worth at least $4,000. Not the kind of impulse purchase Tanya would make without discussing it with him first, even with their comfortable lifestyle. I'm glad you're keeping your grades up. He paused at her desk, eyes catching on the leather-bound journal partially hidden under a geometry textbook. Well, don't stay up too late. Later that night, after Tanya had gone to bed, Clinton returned to Emma's room. The journal was exactly where he'd seen it, its pages filled with his daughter's neat handwriting. May 15th. Uncle Greg took Mom and me shopping today. He got me the Chanel bag I've been wanting forever. Mom says we can't tell Dad because he's weird about expensive gifts. I don't get why we have to keep hiding things. Uncle Greg makes Mom happy, way happier than Dad ever does. I wish she'd just tell Dad and end this pretense. June 3rd. Another business dinner with Mom and Uncle Greg. He's already promised to buy me a car for my 16th birthday. Mom says we'll figure out how to explain it to Dad, but honestly, I'm tired of all the lies. Clinton closed the journal, his hands steady despite the rage building in his chest. His daughter, his little girl who used to wait by the door for him to come home from work, was complicit in her mother's affair. The next morning, Clinton called Marcus again. I need you to expand the investigation. I want everything you can find on Tanya's past. Go back to the beginning of our marriage. Marcus's first report arrived 3 days later, delivered in a plain manila envelope to Clinton's office. The contents were worse than he'd imagined. Gregory Walsh wasn't Tanya's first indiscretion. There had been others: David Cooper, a tennis instructor, in 2010, Michael Reeves, a neighbor's recently divorced brother, in 2013, and most damningly, James Martinez, her boss at the advertising firm where she'd worked, in 2001. The Martinez connection sent Clinton diving into old records. He remembered that period clearly. Tanya had taken a week-long business trip to Miami in March 2001, returning tanned and distant. 9 months later, Emma was born. Clinton accessed Meridian's medical database, pulling up the results from their annual health screenings. His own blood type was AB negative. Tanya's was O positive. Emma's blood type, listed in her emergency contact information, was B positive. A basic understanding of genetics was all it took. It was biologically impossible for him to be Emma's father. The revelation should have destroyed him. Instead, it brought clarity. Clinton McMullen had built Meridian's operations from regional success to national powerhouse through strategic thinking and careful planning. He would approach this betrayal with the same methodical precision. Over the next week, he gathered evidence. Marcus provided photographs of Tanya and Gregory at the Somerset, credit card statements showing matching charges at hotels and restaurants, email exchanges recovered from a secret account. The investigator also uncovered Gregory's pattern: pursuing wealthy married women, lavishing them with gifts, then discarding them once the excitement faded. Clinton's lawyer, Richard Sterling, reviewed the evidence with a grim expression. "This is comprehensive," Richard said, closing the thick folder. "With this documentation, you could take her for everything in the divorce." "That's not my goal." Clinton's voice was calm. "I want to disappear." "Disappear?" "Meridian is opening the new Seattle division. I'll take the transfer, leave the house, the cars, most of the assets. But I want the divorce papers served after I'm gone, along with proof of her infidelity." Richard frowned. "Clinton, you have the upper hand here. Why give her an easy out?" "Because I want her to live with what she's done. Let her explain to our friends, to Emma, To her precious Gregory, why her husband abandoned everything, Clinton's smile held no warmth. But don't include Emma's paternity in the evidence. That's my last gift to the daughter I raised. The plan came together with military precision. Clinton accepted the Seattle position, citing the career opportunity. He arranged for the movers, updated his will, and transferred funds to new accounts. Throughout it all, he maintained his routine, playing the role of devoted husband and father. The night before his departure, he sat through another family dinner, listening to Tanya's plans for redecorating the living room and Emma's complaints about her calculus teacher. "I'll miss you both," Tanya said, reaching for his hand across the table. "But we'll visit all the time. Won't we, Emma?" Emma nodded, already reaching for her phone. "Sure, Dad. Seattle's supposed to be cool." Clinton squeezed Tanya's hand, noting the tennis bracelet Gregory's gift glinting on her wrist. "I'm sure you'll both be just fine." He left before dawn the next morning, leaving 2 envelopes on the kitchen counter. The first contained divorce papers. The second held copies of photographs, hotel receipts, and email exchanges, along with a simple note. "Tanya, 20 years of marriage, and you couldn't even be honest about visiting your mother. I know about Gregory and David and Michael. I know about the shopping trips, the lies, the way you've turned our daughter into your accomplice. You can keep the house, the cars, the life I built for you. Consider it payment for teaching me the true value of loyalty. Clinton." 3 days later, as Clinton settled into his Seattle office, Richard called. "She's making accusations," the lawyer reported. "Claims you've been embezzling from Meridian, that you've left them destitute. She's playing the victim masterfully. Several of your neighbors have already offered to help her financially. And Emma? She's supporting her mother's story. Posted quite a rant on Instagram about her father being a thief and a coward." Clinton watched his office window, thinking of all the bedtime stories, school plays, and father-daughter dances. "Send me the documentation showing all assets were legally obtained and properly declared. Make sure the board has copies as well. What about Emma's posts? Want me to have them taken down?" "No." Clinton's reflection stared back at him, shoulders straight, jaw set. "Let them tell their stories. The truth has a way of surviving lies." He ended the call and turned to his computer, where Meridian's West Coast expansion plans awaited his attention. In the end, Tanya had given him something valuable: freedom from illusions. He had built one successful life from nothing. He could do it again. Seattle, 2017. Clinton McMullen's new office at Meridian Technologies' Seattle headquarters. The space was smaller than his previous corner office in New York, but the view of Puget Sound held its own stark beauty. 6 months had passed since his calculated exit, and the West Coast division was already exceeding projections under his leadership. Marcus Blackwood's weekly report sat open on his laptop. Subject T continues to maintain her victim narrative. Social circles largely sympathetic. Country club membership retained through Walsh's influence. Subject appears to be liquidating personal assets despite maintaining lifestyle. Walsh seen with multiple female companions at various events, though presents publicly with Subject. Subject E graduated high school with honors. Accepted to NYU marketing program. Social media presence continues to paint negative picture of client. Latest post, attached, claims financial abuse and controlling behavior during childhood. Clinton closed the report, his expression unchanged. He'd expected nothing less from Tanya. She'd always excelled at manipulating narratives to her advantage. The country club membership didn't surprise him either. Gregory Walsh collected trophy women like some men collected cars, and Tanya was still attractive enough to be useful at corporate events. His intercom buzzed. "Mr. McMullen? The Q3 operations review is starting in 5 minutes. Thank you, Jennifer." His new assistant was pure efficiency, without Sarah Chin's personal touch. But that suited him now. Personal connections had proven to be liabilities. The operations review showcased the results of Clinton's focused leadership. West Coast revenues up 32%, operating costs down 18%, 3 new strategic partnerships secured. The board members attended virtually, their faces on the conference room screen showing increasing approval as he detailed his plans for expansion into emerging tech markets. "Impressive work, Clinton," said Howard Thorne, board chairman. Very different from the East Coast Division's recent challenges, Clinton allowed himself a small smile. He'd heard about Meridian's New York operations struggling since his departure. Gregory Walsh's attempts to leverage Tanya's accusations had backfired when the board received Clinton's meticulously documented financial records. Thank you, Howard. I believe in letting results speak for themselves. After the meeting, Clinton reviewed another email from Richard Sterling. Tanya's lawyer is pushing for additional asset discovery. Claims there must be hidden accounts based on your sudden lifestyle change. I've provided documentation showing all assets were properly declared in the divorce. Walsh's involvement is becoming more obvious, seeing his usual aggressive tactics. On a related note, Emma's social media campaign has gained traction in certain circles. Several news outlets have reached out for comment on the allegations of financial manipulation and abandonment. How would you like to proceed? Clinton's response was brief. No comment. Forward any media inquiries to Meridian's PR department. Continue monitoring Walsh's involvement. Year 2019. The Seattle division's success had exceeded even Clinton's expectations. His promotion to executive vice president came with a corner office on the top floor and a clear path to CEO. He maintained his routine, 14-hour workdays, healthy meals delivered to his office, regular gym sessions at 5 a.m. His body was leaner now, hardened by purpose rather than mere discipline. Marcus's quarterly report brought unexpected news. Walsh's involvement with Subject T appears strained. Multiple witnesses report public arguments at social events. Subject's attempts to secure position on Helix Pharmaceuticals' charitable board rejected. Walsh seen regularly with Jessica Chen, 28, junior executive at rival firm. Subject T graduating NYU next month. Currently interning at Walsh's company. Relationship with Subject T shows signs of tension, multiple social media posts deleted, fewer public appearances together. Clinton archived the report without comment. He'd expected Walsh to discard Tanya, eventually men like him always did. The timing coincided with Tanya's 45th birthday, and Walsh had never kept a woman past a certain age, as his divorce records indicated. That evening, during his usual review of company operations, Clinton noticed an irregular pattern in the East Coast pharmaceutical accounts. A deeper dive revealed attempted probes of Meridian's security systems, originating from Helix Pharmaceuticals' network. He called Richard. I need a discrete audit of all interactions between Meridian and Helix over the past 3 years. Focus on Gregory Walsh's division. You think he's planning something? Walsh never accepts defeat gracefully. And he's running out of ways to maintain his lifestyle. Helix's stock has dropped 40% since the failed merger with Princeton Biotech. The audit revealed what Clinton had suspected. Walsh was laying groundwork for a hostile takeover attempt. The man had always overestimated his own cleverness. Clinton prepared countermeasures methodically. Every questionable transaction, every attempted system breach, every corporate espionage attempt was documented and time-stamped. He added the files to his growing collection of evidence against Walsh, an insurance policy that was becoming more valuable by the day. Year 2021. Clinton's promotion to CEO of West Coast Operations came with a profile in Seattle Business Monthly. The photographer caught him at his desk, Seattle skyline behind him, his expression focused and unyielding. The article praised his revolutionary approach to corporate efficiency and sterling reputation for ethical leadership. The same week, Emma graduated from NYU. Clinton watched the ceremony through the live stream, noting how she'd grown to resemble James Martinez, same strong jaw, same dark eyes. She'd gained Tanya's gift for public performance, beaming for photos with her mother while accepting the diploma Clinton's alimony had paid for. Marcus's report arrived with pictures. Emma starting her job at a prestigious New York marketing firm, Tanya alone at charity events previously attended with Walsh, Walsh with his new girlfriend at the mayor's ball. Subject T attempting to maintain social position without Walsh's support. Multiple credit cards declined at high-end retailers. Mortgage refinancing application rejected. Subject E's social media posts about client decreased, but continue to reference recovering from toxic childhood. Walsh's company showing signs of financial distress. 3 board members resigned last quarter. SEC investigating irregular trading patterns. Clinton forwarded the report to Richard with one question. Time to apply pressure? The lawyer's response was immediate. Not yet. Let them dig deeper. Year 2023. The Seattle weather matched Clinton's mood as he reviewed the morning briefings. Meridian's West Coast division had just acquired their biggest competitor, cementing their market dominance. The board was discussing expanding his role to global operations. Jennifer's voice came through the intercom. Mr. McMullen, there's a young woman here insisting on seeing you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says she's your daughter. Clinton pressed the button. How long has she been waiting? About 20 minutes. Should I call security? He checked the security feed on his laptop. Emma stood in the reception area, designer clothes less polished than her social media posts suggested, hands clutching an oversized bag. 8 years had aged her from teenager to adult, but her posture still showed Tanya's influenced, practiced grace masking desperation. Send her in. Emma burst through the door, her composed facade cracking. How dare you ignore my messages? Do you know what we've been through because of you? Clinton observed her calmly. Close the door if you're planning to continue shouting. She slammed it shut. Mom is sick. She has cancer. We can't afford the treatments because you cleaned out all the accounts when you ran away. And now I'm supposed to be planning my wedding, but we can barely make rent. Sit down, Emma. Don't you dare act all corporate and cold. You abandoned us. You destroyed our lives because you couldn't handle Mom being happy with someone else. Clinton opened his desk drawer and removed a thick folder, its contents organized with characteristic precision. Before you continue this performance, you should know who you're really asking for help. He laid out the photos first. Tanya with Walsh at the Somerset, timestamps proving her Oregon trips were lies. Credit card statements showing thousands spent on hotels and gifts. Email exchanges planning their future together. Your mother's happiness wasn't my concern, Clinton said, his voice level. Her honesty was. Emma's face paled as he continued laying out documents. Stop it. I don't want to see, but you should see. You've spent 8 years spreading lies about financial abuse. Here are the alimony payments. He placed bank statements on the desk. Here are the tuition payments for NYU. Here are the credit card statements showing your mother's spending after I left. Uncle Greg helped us when you abandoned. Gregory Walsh? Clinton's laugh held no humor. Let's discuss your Uncle Greg. More documents appeared. Walsh's involvement with 6 other married women, his pattern of discarding them when they aged or became inconvenient. Financial records showing his company's desperate attempts to stay afloat. He dropped your mother when she turned 45, just like he dropped his previous mistresses. Just like he'll drop his current girlfriend when she gets too old or too expensive. Emma's hands shook as she picked up a photo of Walsh with his new girlfriend. He said he had to focus on business. He focused on replacing your mother with someone younger. Just like he helped her replace me. Clinton's voice remained steady. But that's not the interesting part. The final documents detailed Walsh and Tanya's plan to force Clinton out of Meridian through false accusations of fraud. Emails discussed using Emma's social media posts to support their narrative. They wanted my shares in the company. Your mother thought she'd end up with a wealthy CEO instead of a mere COO. Walsh needed Meridian's resources to save his failing company. You were their unwitting propaganda machine. Emma's face had lost all color. I didn't. I never knew. You never asked. You chose to believe what was convenient. Your mother said I was abusive, so you posted about trauma. She said I stole money, so you became her public witness. Did you ever wonder why I never defended myself? Why I let you destroy my reputation? I thought you were guilty. Clinton gathered the documents back into the folder. Your mother's cancer isn't my concern. Neither is your wedding. I gave you both exactly what you deserved. The freedom to live with your choices. Dad, please. Emma's voice cracked. I was just a kid. I believed what Mom told me. You're not a kid anymore. You're a marketing professional who used her skills to help destroy her father's reputation. Actions have consequences, Emma. It's time you faced yours. He pressed the intercom. Jennifer, please escort Ms. McMullen out. Dad, wait. There's something else you should know. Clinton raised his hand. You've said enough for one lifetime. As security led Emma from his office, Clinton returned to his work. That evening, Richard called with urgent news. Walsh tried to access the sealed records of your divorce. He's getting desperate. Helix's stock dropped another 30% today. Clinton said, send copies of everything to the SEC. All of it, the corporate espionage attempts, the irregular trading, the attempted fraud. Let's end this properly. It'll destroy him. Tanya too, by association. They built their lives on destroying others. Consider it karmic balance. After the call, Clinton worked late into the night, his reflection in the window growing sharper as darkness fell. 8 years ago, he'd left New York with nothing but his integrity and determination. Now he commanded the most successful division of Meridian Technologies, while those who betrayed him faced the consequences of their actions. The news of Tanya McMullen's affair and Gregory Walsh's corporate espionage broke like a thunderstorm across New York social circles. The SEC investigation into Helix Pharmaceuticals made headlines in the Wall Street Journal. Pharmaceutical executive faces federal probe over corporate espionage allegations. Emma's fiancé, David Chun, sat in their Manhattan apartment, scrolling through the evidence that had leaked to various news outlets. The photographs of Tanya with multiple men over the years. The emails plotting against Clinton McMullen. The corporate espionage attempts. You told me your father was an abusive man who stole from his company, David said, his voice flat. You said he drove your mother into poverty. Emma stared at her engagement ring, 3 carats, chosen to match her carefully crafted image of success. David, I can explain. Explain what? That you helped destroy an innocent man's reputation? That your mother was the one having affairs? He stood up, pacing their expensive living room. My family values integrity above everything, Emma. We're traditional people. This isn't something I can ignore. Please, just let me. The wedding's off. David pulled off his ring. My mother was right about you. The way you constantly posted about your father, turning yourself into a victim. She said anyone that obsessed with destroying someone else must be hiding something. After David left, Emma logged into her social media accounts. Her carefully curated narrative of surviving financial abuse had gained her thousands of followers and even speaking engagements at women's empowerment events. Now those same followers were sharing news articles about the SEC investigation, questioning everything she claimed. Her phone buzzed with a text from her boss. We need to talk about your position with the firm. Your social media presence has become problematic for our brand. In Connecticut, James Martinez watched the news from his corner office at Global Innovations. His secretary buzzed in. Sir, there's a young woman named Emma McMullen insisting on seeing you. She says it's about a DNA test. Martinez's hand tightened on his desk. He'd built his life carefully after leaving the advertising world CEO position, political connections, philanthropic image. A paternity scandal would destroy everything. Tell her I'm in meetings all day. And Jennifer? That name shouldn't appear in my calendar again. He called his lawyer immediately. I need ironclad deniability, whatever it costs. Tanya sat in her oncologist's office, the latest scan results on the screen behind her. The cancer had responded to treatment, but the bills had devastated her finances. Gregory's promises of support had vanished along with his social standing. Mrs. McMullen, Dr. Patterson said, we need to discuss payment arrangements for your continuing care. I told you, Gregory Walsh will be handling. Mr. Walsh's office has informed us they're no longer covering your treatment costs. Tanya's carefully maintained composure cracked. That's impossible. He promised. Perhaps you should explore other options. There are payment plans. I'll call some friends, Tanya said, reaching for her phone. But the messages she sent went unanswered. Her social circle, once so eager to support the victim of Clinton McMullen's supposed financial abuse, had seen the evidence of her affairs. The photos, the emails, the plots against her husband. Victoria Ashworth, her closest confidant, sent back one message. Please don't contact me again. My husband sits on 3 corporate boards. We can't be associated with this scandal. At Helix Pharmaceuticals, Gregory Walsh faced the board of directors. The SEC investigation had uncovered everything: the corporate espionage, the irregular trading, the attempts to manipulate Meridian stock. The company's reputation is in tatters, board chairman Phillips said. Our stock has dropped 60%. 3 major partners have withdrawn from drug trials, I can explain, Walsh started. Save it for the federal investigators. Phillips slid a document across the table. Resign now, or we'll vote you out and cooperate fully with the SEC. Walsh's arrogance finally cracked. You can't do this to me. I built this company. No, Gregory. You destroyed it. Just like you destroyed everything else you touched. Emma sat in her therapist's office, the weight of her actions finally sinking in. Dr. Sarah Bennett waited patiently as she spoke. I believed every lie she told me, Emma said. About Dad being controlling. About him stealing money. I wanted to hurt him the way I thought he'd hurt us. She wiped her eyes. But he was the only one who never lied. What do you plan to do now? Emma pulled out a journal leather-bound, like the one her father had found years ago. I'm writing everything down. The truth this time. About Mom's affairs. About Uncle Greg's manipulation. About how I helped them destroy an innocent man's life. And then, I'm sending it to my father. He deserves to know I finally understand what I did. Clinton sat in his Seattle office, now adorned with awards from his successful leadership of Meridian's West Coast division. The board meeting had just ended. They'd unanimously voted him as global CEO. Rachel, his wife of 6 months, brought him coffee. They'd met at a technology conference where she challenged his views on AI implementation. Her intelligence and direct manner had caught his attention. Her integrity had won his trust. The SEC just announced formal charges against Walsh, she said, sitting across from him. The evidence you provided was decisive. Clinton nodded. The manila envelope containing Emma's therapy journals sat unopened on his desk. Are you going to read it? Rachel asked. Eventually. He turned to the window. Some things need time to settle. She's trying to make amends. Amends require more than words, Rachel. They require accepting consequences. His phone buzzed another wedding invitation from Emma. The ceremony would be small, she wrote. No publicity. No social media. Just truth and humility. Clinton marked it, returned to sender, without opening it. Some bridges weren't meant to be rebuilt. They served better as reminders of why we stopped crossing them. The Seattle Times ran a profile on Clinton McMullen, newly appointed global CEO of Meridian Technologies. The article praised his unwavering integrity and strategic brilliance in exposing corporate espionage while building the company's most successful division. In a small apartment in Boston, Emma read the article. Her marketing career was over. No firm would touch her after the scandal. She worked as a junior copywriter now, starting over with hard-earned humility. Her phone showed a news alert. Gregory Walsh had pleaded guilty to securities fraud. Another alert. James Martinez had stepped down from Global Innovations, citing personal reasons after Emma's paternity claims gained media attention. In Connecticut, Tanya lived in a rented condo, her luxury home sold to pay medical bills. The cancer was in remission, but her reputation would never recover. Her friends had abandoned her, her lover had betrayed her, and her daughter had learned the bitter taste of truth. Clinton stood at the window of his new office in Meridian's global headquarters. Rachel worked beside him, reviewing acquisition proposals. They'd built a partnership based on mutual respect and unwavering honesty. The board wants to know if you'll speak at the ethics conference, Rachel said. Your story about exposing corporate espionage has become a case study in business schools. Clinton smiled slightly. Sometimes the best lessons come from letting people face the consequences of their choices. Clinton McMullen had learned long ago that some stains weren't meant to be washed away. They were meant to remind us why we chose to walk away from the storm. On his desk, a new initiative awaited his signature. The Meridian Integrity Project, dedicated to exposing paternity fraud and corporate espionage. He'd turned his pain into purpose, his betrayal into a beacon for others. Clinton stood unmoved. He'd built his life twice now, first from nothing, then from betrayal. Each version stronger than the last, each choice vindicated by time and truth. Some called it revenge. Clinton called it justice. And justice, like karma, needed no explanation. Epilogue. The Manhattan social scene had long memories. At 60, Tanya McMullen Walsh lived in a modest 2-bedroom apartment in Queens, far from her former Westbrook Hills mansion. Her carefully maintained beauty had faded, replaced by the harsh lines of someone who'd lost everything worth keeping. She sat alone at her kitchen table, reading the Wall Street Journal's latest profile on Clinton McMullen. Under his decade of leadership, Meridian Technologies had become a global powerhouse. The article praised his revolutionary approach to corporate integrity and the Meridian Integrity Project, which had exposed dozens of corporate fraud cases and supported countless victims of paternity fraud. Her phone buzzed another collection agency. The cancer treatments might have saved her life, but they destroyed her finances. Gregory Walsh's promise to cover her medical bills had vanished along with his fortune after the SEC investigation. He'd served 3 years in federal prison for securities fraud and corporate espionage. Now at 70, he lived in a retirement community in Florida, his empire reduced to Social Security checks and bitter memories. Tanya's former friends had made their choices clear. Victoria Ashworth, once her closest confidant, had written a tell-all book, The Art of Deception. My Years with a Social Climber. It had spent 6 weeks on the bestseller list, each page exposing another layer of Tanya's manipulations. Her phone rang again. Emma, calling from Boston. Mom, did you get the invitation to Jack's 5th birthday party? Tanya's grandson had her green eyes, but none of her deception. Emma had married Michael Crawford, an accountant who valued honesty above status. Their modest life was everything Tanya had once despised. I did, sweetheart. But I'm not sure. It's just family, Mom. Small gathering. Emma's voice held the careful tone of someone who'd learned to measure trust in teaspoons. Michael's parents will be there. His sister, Kate. The unspoken name hung between them. Clinton wouldn't be there. He'd maintained his position on reconciliation through the years. Emma had learned to respect his boundaries, understanding that some bridges couldn't be rebuilt with apologies alone. In Seattle, Clinton's office at Meridian's global headquarters offered a view of the city he'd made his own. At 65, his hair had gone steel gray, but his presence remained commanding. The Wall Street Journal article sat on his desk beside newer achievements, honorary doctorates, humanitarian awards, and pictures of his family with Rachel. Their twin daughters, Sarah and Lauren, had inherited their parents' sharp minds and unwavering principles. At 16, they were everything Emma could have been: honest, direct, and fiercely loyal. Rachel entered with their morning coffee ritual. 20 years of marriage had deepened their connection, each year adding layers of trust to their foundation. The Integrity Project's latest report is ready for review, she said, sliding a tablet across his desk. We've identified 3 new cases of corporate fraud and helped 20 families affected by paternity fraud last quarter. Clinton nodded, remembering the project's origins in his own pain. How's the university partnership progressing? Harvard Business School wants to expand the case study program. Your stories become required reading in their ethics curriculum. The corner of his mouth lifted slightly. Karma does have a sense of education. His phone buzzed. Marcus Blackwood's quarterly report on the past players in his life's drama. Gregory Walsh released from assisted living facility after second stroke. Medical bills depleted remaining assets. Now residing in state-funded care home in Tampa. James Martinez resigned from all board positions after paternity claims surfaced. Currently living in Portugal, avoiding U.S. media. Subject team maintains minimal lifestyle in Queens. Monthly medical bills exceed income. Attempts to publish memoir rejected by multiple publishers. Subject E continues copywriting work in Boston. Second child expected in December. Social media presence remains minimal, focused on family photos and children's activities. Clinton archived the report. He'd stopped reading them years ago for any emotional content. They were simply data points now, confirmation that choices had consequences. A reminder popped up on his calendar. Sarah and Lauren's science fair that evening. They developed a blockchain application for verifying corporate financial records, inspired by their father's work in corporate transparency. The girls want to stop for ice cream after the fair, Rachel said, reading his schedule. Lauren mentioned that new place by the waterfront. Clinton smiled, a real one this time. Let's make it dinner too. They deserve a proper celebration. In a Tampa nursing home, Gregory Walsh stared out his window at the Florida sun. Copies of old business magazines sat untouched on his bedside table, reminders of his former life as a corporate titan. His second stroke had left him partially paralyzed, dependent on state aid after his assets were drained by legal fees and settlements. His younger girlfriend had left when the money ran out. His children from previous marriages didn't visit. His reputation, once his most valuable asset, was now a cautionary tale in business ethics courses. A nurse brought his evening medication. "Mr. Walsh, you have a visitor." Victoria Ashworth stood in the doorway, recorder in hand. "Hello, Gregory. Ready to tell your side of the story?" He turned away. Even his part in Tanya's downfall had been taken from him, reduced to a chapter in someone else's expose. Emma sat in her home office in Boston, finishing an article for a small business newsletter. Her social media accounts, once filled with attacks on her father, now showed only her children's milestones and family moments. Jack played with his toys nearby while she rubbed her growing belly. The new baby, another boy, would carry the Crawford name. She'd learned to find peace in simple truths. Love without manipulation, success without destruction. Michael came home from his accounting firm, kissing her cheek. "How are my favorite people?" "We're good." Mom called about Jack's party. He nodded, understanding the complexities. "And your father?" "Same as always." The twins sent pictures from their science fair, though. "They're brilliant, just like him." Emma had learned to appreciate her father's success from afar. His new family represented everything she'd helped destroy in her old one. Trust, honesty, unconditional love. She opened her laptop, checking the Meridian Integrity Project's website. Her father's latest initiative had helped expose 3 major corporate fraud cases and provided support for dozens of families affected by paternity fraud. His pain had become purpose, his betrayal transformed into a legacy of truth. Clinton and Rachel hosted their annual employee appreciation dinner at their Seattle home. The twins entertained guests with stories from their coding projects, while Rachel discussed the Integrity Project's university partnerships. Howard Thorne, now retired from Meridian's board, raised a toast. To Clinton McMullen, the man who turned betrayal into a billion-dollar lesson in corporate integrity, Clinton surveyed the room: his wife, his daughters, his legacy of truth. He'd built this life twice. Once from nothing, then from betrayal. Each version stronger than the last, each choice vindicated by time. Later that night, after the guests had left, Clinton stood at his home office window. Rachel joined him, their reflections overlapping in the glass. "Emma sent pictures of Jack," she said softly, "and an ultrasound of the new baby." Clinton nodded. He kept a folder of these images, separate from business files and project reports. Not for reconciliation, some bridges served better as memories, but as reminders that truth had its own way of rebuilding what lies destroyed. "Sarah and Lauren want to expand the Integrity Project," Rachel continued. "They've designed an AI system to detect patterns of corporate fraud, like father, like daughters." Clinton smiled. Clinton McMullen had learned decades ago that some storms were meant to be weathered, not escaped. They carved new paths, revealed hidden strengths, and sometimes, if you stood firm enough, they washed away just enough of the past to let the future shine through. In Queens, Tanya stared at old photos of her former life. In Tampa, Gregory Walsh faced his legacy of destruction. In Boston, Emma raised her children on hard-earned wisdom. And in Seattle, Clinton McMullen stood with his true family, having turned life's hardest lesson into his greatest victory. Sometimes the best revenge isn't in destruction, but in rebuilding something stronger from the ruins. The rain kept falling, but Clinton had long since learned to dance in storms.
This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comment section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy the story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.